The laughter across the void. The Galactic Council chamber shimmered under the cold light of distant stars. Dozens of alien admirals sat around a long circular table, their faces glowing with pride and arrogance. In the center, a holographic image showed the dark outline of a single human vessel drifting near the edge of a dying star. Laughter echoed through the chamber. Sharp and cruel, the Starborn commander, a tall being with silver skin and crystal eyes, pointed at the image and spoke with mockery. They sent one ship? One tiny human vessel against the Grand Armada? How pathetic, the others laughed louder, their voices mixing into a chorus of contempt. To them, humanity was still a young race, weak, reckless, and emotional. They remembered the humans' plea for peace, their desperate calls for alliance, their promises to stay quiet on their small blue world. And now, after being ignored and insulted, humanity had sent only one ship into battle. The Council found it amusing, almost insulting. A fleet of 1,000 ships against a single human craft, and it wasn't a war. It was entertainment, but far away from their laughter. The Aegis Dawn floated in silence. Its hull was blacker than the void, absorbing light instead of reflecting it to the naked eye. It was invisible and a shadow among shadows. Inside the ship, every light was dimmed, every movement measured, every breath controlled. The crew of 50 sat ready, their eyes fixed on the screens that surrounded them. No one spoke, no one moved. The air was thick with focus and tension. Captain Elias Ward stood at the command center, his hands resting behind his back, his gaze locked on the holographic map. He listened to the faint hum of the ship's core, a sound like a sleeping storm. Waiting to wake, the communications officer looked up and said softly, "Sir, enemy fleet advancing 1,000 ships, multiple formations." Ward nodded slowly, his face calm, almost too calm. He had seen what the aliens did to human colonies, burning cities, crushing ships, turning proud people into memories. Now the galaxy would see what humans had become. Back in the council chamber, the Starborn commander leaned back in his chair. Smiling, "Send them a message," he said lazily. "Tell the humans to surrender now, and we may let them live as servants." A smaller alien officer transmitted the command, mocking laughter still echoing around him, but the human ship gave no reply. Instead, the Aegis Dawn remained silent, drifting closer to the center of the battlefield. The alien sensors tried to scan it. Nothing returned. Its systems could not be read, its weapons not detected, its engine not identified. The aliens thought it was broken, lost, or empty. They did not know that inside its black hull slept something built for one purpose: to end arrogance. Still no response from the human ship, a Starborn technician reported. The commander smirked. Perhaps they lost power. How typical of humans. He turned to his second-in-command and said, "Prepare to fire, let's finish this joke." The alien fleet began to move, their formation tightening, their ships glowing with energy. Thousands of cannons powered up, their lights forming a deadly constellation across the void. To any observer, it looked like a god's wrath ready to strike. But on the Aegis Dawn, not a single alarm sounded. The crew remained silent, watching, waiting. Trusting their captain, Captain Ward finally spoke. His voice quiet but steady. "Let them come," he said, his eyes never leaving the display. "The moment they fire, the moment they reveal their power, they'll learn what humanity truly means." The engineer, a young woman named Riley, looked up from her console, her voice trembling. "Sir, are we really going to do it?" "The core, it's never been tested." Ward's expression didn't change, his tone cold as steel. "It's been tested in our nightmares, Ensign." "That's enough." He walked toward the front viewport, where the light of enemy ships began to glow like rising suns. Each alien vessel looked like a fortress, vast and beautiful, each carrying weapons that could destroy a moon. The Aegis Dawn was smaller, older, quieter, but it carried something the Starborn would never understand: human resolve. The alien commander gave the order. Fire. Beams of light, plasma, and ion storms raced across the stars, cutting through the void toward the human ship, each blast brighter than lightning, each explosion strong enough to shatter a mountain. The Starborn laughed again, confident that nothing could survive such fury. But when the light faded, the laughter stopped. The Aegis Dawn was still there, untouched, its dark hull glowing faintly red. Every alien eye widened, every voice fell silent. The sensors showed impossible readings, energy bending, space itself folding around the ship. "What is that?" Someone whispered. "How?" How is it still standing? No one had the answer. Inside the human vessel, the captain finally gave his command. Power up the Dawn. Engage the core. Riley hesitated for only a second before pressing the activation key. The entire ship vibrated low and deep like thunder rolling from inside the stars. Outside, space itself seemed to twist, light bending and warping. The alien fleet backed away instinctively, not understanding what they were seeing. Captain Ward's voice echoed through the comms. Not as a threat, but as a statement. You mocked one ship. Now you'll understand what one ship means. The Aegis Dawn's engines flared to life, burning brighter than a sun. Its black armor shimmered with power, and the stars themselves seemed to dim. The moment had come. Silence before fire, calm before the storm. And as the aliens watched in growing terror, the laughter that once filled the void began to fade, replaced by fear, because in that endless night, the humans had stopped being a joke. They had become a legend in the making, and the galaxy was about to learn what silence truly sounded like. The ship that shouldn't exist. The Aegis Dawn drifted like a ghost through the battlefield, its hull absorbing the light of dying stars. Every alien sensor tried to lock on, but the readings made no sense one moment. It was there. A small vessel outlined against the void, the next it simply vanished. The Starborn commanders shouted orders, their confidence shaken, their perfect formation collapsing under confusion. The fleet's advanced tracking systems, once proud tools of conquest, now showed static, distortion, and silence. Something inside that human ship was bending the rules of the universe, and no one, not even the greatest scientists of the Starborn, could explain how deep inside the ship's dark corridors. The hum of the awakened core grew louder. Blue lights flickered along the floor, pulsing in rhythm with a sound that felt almost alive. The crew could feel it in their bones. A deep vibration, heavy with power. Engineer Riley stood before the main reactor chamber, her hands trembling as she read the energy output. Sir, she whispered into her headset. The core is responding, but it's not following the control parameters. Captain Ward's calm voice came through the comm, steady as ever. Let it, Riley, the core was never meant to be controlled. He turned toward his tactical officer and said, Arm railguns, activate gravity shields. Prepare for phase shift. The officer nodded and entered the commands. The bridge bathed in red emergency light to anyone watching. It looked like the ship was bleeding power, but in truth it was feeding on it. The Aegis Dawn wasn't built like any other human ship. It wasn't even meant to exist under the old treaties. It had been forged in secret under the Arctic ice, hidden from alien surveillance for decades. Every scientist, every engineer who worked on it vanished afterward, their names erased from every record. The ship carried technology born from desperation, human minds working beyond fear, beyond limitation. At its heart was the quantum singularity drive, a reactor that used miniature black holes to bend space itself. Even the name had been forbidden, too dangerous, too unpredictable, too powerful. But when humanity stood on the edge of extinction, they decided it was time to use the impossible. Captain Ward had been chosen not for his rank, but for his will. He had seen his home burn, his people enslaved, his planet ignored by the very council that now mocked him. He wasn't here for glory. He was here for justice. And that justice came wrapped in fire and silence. Captain, said the comms officer suddenly, they're hailing us again. Ward looked at the screen. A Starborn admiral, his crystal armor gleaming, appeared in the hologram. Human, the alien said, his voice dripping with mockery. You've survived the first volley. Impressive for an insect. Ward said nothing, only stared at the alien with cold, emotionless eyes. The admiral smiled wider. We will give you one chance. Surrender your ship and kneel before the Starborn Empire, and your species will serve us, not perish. The bridge went silent. Only the hum of the core filled the air. Ward leaned forward, his voice quiet but sharp. We don't kneel. And with that, he cut the transmission. Target the flagship, Ward ordered. No warnings. The tactical officer hesitated. Sir, there are over 1,000 ships. Then we start with one, Ward interrupted. The ship's railguns extended silently from the hull, their barrels glowing with magnetized energy. Inside, coils of plasma began to spin faster and faster, tearing at the edge of reality. Riley's voice came again through the comm. Core output stable but increasing. It's learning. Ward smiled faintly. Good. Let it learn. In the alien fleet, Panic began to grow. The Starborn flagship detected a sudden burst of gravitational distortion behind it. Before anyone could react, a bright arc of energy ripped through the dark, faster than light, faster than thought. The railgun round hit the alien flagship straight through its command deck. There was no explosion, no fire, only a blinding flash and then nothing. The ship was gone, erased, atomized, erased from existence as if it had never been. Gasps filled the alien comm channels, orders clashed, and chaos spread through their perfect ranks. The laughter that once filled their halls was gone now, replaced by fear. Their sensors showed one impossible thing. The human ship had fired from two different locations at once. It was everywhere and nowhere. A shadow striking from beyond time on the Aegis Dawn. The crew watched the readings in awe. They had seen railguns before, but nothing like this. Each shot folded reality, bending it like cloth, cutting through ships light years away. The weapon wasn't just destroying matter, it was rewriting it. Ward's voice broke the silence, calm as ever. They called us primitive, he said quietly. They called us emotional, chaotic, weak. He turned toward the stars, eyes reflecting the faint blue glow of the ship's core. Let them call us something new now. Outside, the alien fleet began to scatter, desperate to form distance between them and the human ship. But it didn't matter. The Aegis Dawn was no longer moving through normal space. It was shifting, phasing, appearing behind ships, firing, then disappearing again. Every shot tore through metal, through shields, through pride. The galaxy's strongest warriors were now running from a single human vessel. And as the battle unfolded, one truth echoed across the stars. Humanity had created something beyond fear, beyond logic, beyond control. A ship that shouldn't exist, and yet it did, and now, the universe would have to live with that mistake. The first strike. The void had never known fear until that night. Where once the Starborn fleet sailed with confidence, now only panic moved between their ships. The destruction of their flagship had spread through the command channels like wildfire. No one could explain it, no one could even record it. The ship had not exploded. It had simply ceased to exist. In a galaxy where logic ruled and technology had reached the limits of understanding, the impossible had happened, and it had come from humanity. The species everyone had mocked, ignored and underestimated, the Starborn commander of the Second Fleet. Admiral Vothar shouted over the comms, "Find that ship! Scan every frequency, every spectrum. I want its coordinates now." His crew obeyed, terrified, their screens flickering with nonsense data. Each scan returned impossible results. The human vessel existed in 3 locations at once. "It's using quantum distortion." "Sir," one officer stammered, "then counter it." Vothar roared, slamming a fist against his console. But there was no counter, no defense, no logic that could stop what was coming. Far away, aboard the Aegis Dawn, the crew sat in calm silence. The red light of the battlefields reflected against their faces. Captain Ward stood at the center, his expression carved from stone. "All weapons charged," reported Riley, her hands moving over the glowing panels. Ward nodded. "Lock onto their carrier ships first, disable their fighters, then target their power cores." The tactical officer hesitated. "Sir, that will destroy over 10,000 lives." Ward's eyes narrowed, his voice low. "They destroyed billions," he said. "This is justice, not war." The Aegis Dawn shifted again, vanishing from visible space to the Starborn fleet. It was as if a shadow had dissolved into the darkness moments later. The first carrier exploded in total silence. No sound, no light. Just a ripple in reality as the energy folded in on itself. Then another vanished and another, until the fleet's formation broke completely. The alien pilots screamed over the comms, "It's inside our formation! It's everywhere!" One officer shouted, "Sir, our plasma grids are failing, shields collapsing." Admiral Vothar's voice cracked, "Regroup!" Regroup. But there was no regrouping in hell. The humans weren't fighting with speed or strength. They were fighting with something far worse, precision. Every shot from the Aegis Dawn was deliberate, mathematical. The railguns tore through critical systems with surgical accuracy. Fighter bays detonated before launch. Engines melted before ignition. Entire warships fell apart without even knowing they'd been hit. And through the chaos, the Aegis Dawn remained silent. No taunts, no broadcast, only its deadly calm in the bridge. Riley's voice trembled. "Captain, the core output is rising again. It's learning faster than before." Ward turned toward her. "Can you stabilize it?" She shook her head. It's not destabilizing, sir, it's evolving. He looked back toward the holographic screen, where hundreds of red dots blinked out one by one. Then let it evolve, he whispered. It was born from our desperation. Now let it show them what that means. Outside, the Starborn tried everything, missiles, plasma lances, particle storms, gravity traps. Nothing touched the Aegis Dawn. Every attack curved away at the last moment, swallowed by the distortion field surrounding the ship. The aliens had no name for it. The humans called it the Silence because when it activated, all sound, light, and data vanished within its reach. Ships disappeared into it and never came back out. Admiral Vothar watched in disbelief as his own command ship began to disintegrate. He looked out through the viewport and saw only the faint shimmer of a human vessel outlined by red light. For the first time in his life, he understood fear. He opened a channel to his fleet and screamed, "Retreat! All ships retreat!" But his words were cut short as the bridge was consumed by blinding white light. And then silence on the Aegis Dawn. Captain Ward watched as the last of the enemy fleet signals vanished from the display. He took a slow breath and said quietly, "Report," Riley replied. "Enemy fleet destroyed, sir. No survivors detected," the communications officer added. "Incoming transmissions from nearby systems. They're watching, sir." Ward's eyes hardened. "Let them watch," he said. "They need to see what happens when they mock humanity." He walked toward the viewport, staring out at the wreckage drifting across the void. Burning fragments of alien ships floated like dying stars, each glowing ember reflected in his cold blue eyes. Behind him, the crew sat in stunned silence, victorious. Yet changed forever, the captain spoke again. Softly this time, almost to himself. "They thought we were weak," he said. "They forgot we learned strength from pain." He raised his hand toward the stars. "Transmit the message," he ordered. The comms officer nodded, sending the signal through every galactic frequency. Ward's voice echoed across the cosmos, carried by waves of silence and power. "This is the Terran ship Aegis Dawn. Humanity does not seek war, but we do not run from it. You laughed at one ship. Now remember what it cost you. The age of silence has begun." The transmission cut. Across the galaxy, countless species listened in stunned horror. The laughter that once mocked Earth now died in their throats, and somewhere deep in the void, the Aegis Dawn vanished again, a whisper of vengeance, a shadow of humanity, leaving behind only burning stars and the cold echo of silence. The human response silence ruled the galaxy for one long heartbeat. Then, like thunder following lightning, every channel erupted with panic. Fleets scrambled, empires shouted orders, admirals screamed for answers, but across the chaos, one truth spread like fire. Humanity had struck back, not with numbers, not with alliances, but with one ship that carried the weight of an entire species' fury. In the command chamber of the Galactic Council, the alien elders stood frozen, their proud voices now hollow, their golden banners trembling in artificial wind. One of them whispered, "It was supposed to be symbolic." "A show of dominance," another answered, voice trembling. "Then why are their fleets gone?" The question echoed unanswered, because deep in their hearts, every alien ruler felt it, the fear of the humans they had mocked. Far away in the void between stars, the Aegis Dawn drifted among wreckage and ash, its hull still glowing faintly from the energy it had unleashed. Inside, the bridge was calm, the crew silent, their faces pale with awe. They had seen something greater than technology. They had seen humanity's wrath given form. Riley's voice broke the stillness, quiet but shaken. "Captain, we've destroyed their entire fleet." Ward turned slowly toward her, his eyes steady. "And they will send more," he said softly. "They always do." He walked to the forward viewport, looking at the drifting fragments of once great warships. Their pieces glittered like dying stars in the darkness. "Transmit a signal," he ordered, "to every listening post, every open frequency." The comms officer hesitated. "Sir, what should we say?" Ward's voice was calm, low, almost sorrowful. "Tell them the truth," he said. "Tell them we don't fight for conquest. We fight to be left alone." Across the stars, thousands of receivers crackled to life, and through them, the voice of a human captain echoed across worlds that had never heard such conviction. "To those who mock Earth, to those who see us as weak, remember this day, humanity does not seek war. But we do not run from it. You fired first, and now the silence you hear is your own making." The message spread faster than any fleet, reaching every empire, every colony, every ruler. and with it came a new name whispered in fear. Aegis Dawn, the ship of silence. The ghost of vengeance back on the bridge? Riley stared at her screen. "Sir," she said slowly, "we're receiving multiple transmissions. Not from enemies, but from allies." Ward turned to her, one eyebrow raised. "Allies?" "Yes, sir, smaller races, ones who were conquered by the Starborn. They're sending messages of hope, surrender, or thanks." Ward didn't smile, but something softened in his voice. "Tell them to stay silent," he said. "Silence will protect them more than hope ever will." Then, an alert flashed red across the tactical display. The officer shouted, "Captain!" "We're detecting new signatures, massive in number, approaching from hyperspace." Ward didn't flinch. "Second wave," he muttered. "They came faster than I thought." The engineer looked at her instruments, eyes wide. "There are hundreds of them. Sirs, dreadnoughts, carriers, whole planetary siege platforms." Ward nodded once, his expression unreadable. "Then this is where we show them what humanity really is." He turned toward his crew, his voice steady but powerful. "Activate full systems, link targeting arrays. Open the core's second phase." Riley hesitated. "Sir, second phase is untested. If it fails, it could consume us." Ward looked straight at her. "Riley, every war that matters is untested. Do it." The Aegis Dawn began to hum again, deeper, heavier, like the heartbeat of a giant awakening. Blue arcs of energy crawled across its black hull. The stars around it seemed to bend, the light shifting and rippling as the ship entered a higher resonance. From afar, the Starborn fleet slowed, their commanders staring at the readings in disbelief. "What are they doing?" One admiral whispered, another answered, "It's creating gravity wells inside itself." But by the time they realized what was happening, it was too late. The Aegis Dawn vanished, not through speed, but through space itself. It reappeared within the center of the incoming armada. Weapons already primed, shields resonating with impossible energy. The first salvo it unleashed didn't destroy, it erased. Beams of light curved in impossible angles, bending around physics itself. Alien ships vanished into folds of dark energy. Consumed without sound, the fleet tried to scatter, but the Aegis Dawn moved like a predator among panicked prey. Inside the bridge, the tremor shook the floor. Riley shouted over the noise, "Core output reaching critical. I can't contain it." Ward didn't move from his place. "Don't contain it," he said. "Let it remember who built it." The engineer stared at him, realizing what he meant. The ship wasn't just a weapon. It was alive, it learned, it adapted, it felt. It carried the memory of human pain, loss, and defiance in its heart. And now it was fighting like one of them. The second fleet fell faster than the first. In mere minutes, hundreds of ships became dust, their energy absorbed into the void. Ward's final order rang through the bridge. "Cut comms, no messages, no mercy." They had their chance to listen. The crew obeyed. No hesitation, no fear, only quiet resolve. The Aegis Dawn drifted through the remains of the armada, and as the light faded, only darkness remained, a silence deeper than death, a silence born from humanity's answer. And across the galaxy, every species that once laughed now stared into the dark and whispered one truth. The humans had answered, and the stars themselves trembled, the message to the galaxy. The galaxy was never silent for long, yet after the fall of the second Starborn fleet, an unnatural stillness filled the void across the great empires. Communication slowed, trade routes went dark, and border worlds locked down in fear. Every beacon, every sensor, every probe that once watched humanity now turned away, because the name Aegis Dawn had become something unspoken, a word that meant death, vengeance, and silence in the Galactic Council. The same chamber that once echoed with laughter now lay in uneasy quiet. The Starborn representatives sat in stunned disbelief, their bright banners dimmed and their voices gone. One of the elders, his skin cracked like glass, whispered, "They were not supposed to survive," another replied, trembling. "They did not survive. They evolved." Holographic recordings of the battle flickered across the table, blue light replaying destruction beyond comprehension. Every explosion, every vanishing ship, every silent second reminded them of what they had unleashed. And for the first time in centuries, the mighty Galactic Council did not know what to do. "Call an emergency summit," the High Regent demanded, his tone shaking. "We must send envoys to Earth. We must offer truce before they destroy everything." But even as he spoke, His words were drowned out by the distant rumble of fear spreading through the chamber, because the screens before them showed something terrifying. Not just the Aegis Dawn, but hundreds of identical signatures. New human vessels rising from hidden worlds, crawling out of asteroid fields and unfolding from dark matter storms, each one blacker than the void, each one carrying the same unreadable energy signature. The humans hadn't sent just one ship anymore. They had sent a warning. Far from the Council in the command bridge of the Aegis Dawn, Captain Ward stood silent, the stars reflected against his calm face, his eyes fixed on the display showing a dozen other Terran ships emerging from slipspace. His second officer whispered, "Sir, new signals confirmed. Aegis Vanguard, Eclipse 1, Iron Dawn, and others, all active." Ward nodded slowly. "They were waiting," Riley turned in disbelief. "Waiting? You mean they were always ready?" He looked at her, the faintest trace of a smile on his lips. "No. Ensign, they were waiting for proof that it could be done." The communications console began to flash. "Incoming message from Earth Command." Ward accepted, and the holographic figure of an old general appeared. Her eyes cold and proud. "Captain Ward," she said. "The world has heard your silence." Ward saluted lightly. "Admiral, the Starborn fleets have been eliminated." The Admiral nodded, her face unreadable. "And now they listen," she said. "Transmit the message, the one we prepared long ago." Ward turned toward his comms officer. "Begin transmission, across the stars, through every frequency, every channel, every world." Humanity's voice spread. A calm, steady voice filled the void. The voice of Captain Ward himself. "To all who hear this message, humanity does not seek conquest. We do not desire thrones, nor do we demand obedience. But we will not be mocked, enslaved, or forgotten. You have seen what one ship can do. Imagine what 1,000 will bring. The age of silence has ended. Now begins the age of consequence." The message echoed across the galaxy like a storm. Planets stopped transmitting, empires froze their fleets, and worlds that once called humans primitive now whispered their name with reverence. On distant colonies, alien civilians turned their eyes to the night sky, searching for the black shapes that haunted their dreams. For the first time, the galaxy realized that humanity was not a race of war. They were a race of survival, and survival, when pushed to the edge, becomes something unstoppable. On the bridge of the Aegis Dawn, the crew watched the data feeds of dozens of alien empires sending peace signals. Riley whispered, "They're surrendering. Sir, entire fleets are standing down." Ward didn't smile, but his eyes softened. "Good," he said. "Let them live to remember." He turned toward the viewport, where the light of dying stars reflected off the hull. For a moment the silence was almost peaceful. "But he knew peace would not last, sir," the tactical officer said quietly. "New readings, unknown movements beyond the Orion reach, massive in scale." Ward exhaled slowly, his voice quiet but sharp. "Of course," he said. "The ones who built the Starborn." The crew turned toward him, confused and fearful. He continued, "The Starborn were never the masters of this galaxy, and only servants." His gaze hardened. "And now their masters are coming." The crew fell silent, feeling the shift in the air. Riley's voice barely a whisper. "What do we do now, sir?" Ward looked toward the endless void, his expression calm as the ship's hum grew louder. "We do what humans always do," he said. "We adapt, we endure, and when the stars burn again, we'll be ready." Outside, the Aegis Dawn turned slowly toward the dark horizon, its engines ignited with quiet thunder, and as it vanished into the void, its final transmission lingered across the stars, a message not of fear, but of warning. "We came from the smallest world. We faced gods and tyrants, and we survived. We are humanity, and we are not done yet." The signal faded. The stars burned quietly, and in the silence that followed, the galaxy finally listened. The Starborn's last stand. The warning had echoed for weeks through every inhabited system. From the core empires to the frozen colonies near the galactic rim, every species now watched the humans in terrified silence. But fear does not always lead to surrender. In the deep void beyond the Helion belt, the remnants of the Starborn gathered for one final stand. Over 1,000 ships repaired, reforged, and united under a new banner, vengeance. Admiral Vothar's successor, a younger, colder leader named Serac, stood before his fleet's display screens. His voice thundered across the command deck. The humans think they've won. They think their silence means victory, but today, the silence will end with them. He raised his arm, and behind him, the holographic image of humanity's fleet shimmered. The Terrans are nothing more than shadows in borrowed machines, he snarled. We were the firstborn of the stars, and we will be the last to fall. The Starborn fleet ignited their engines, the void glowing crimson as thousands of ships broke formation. Their destination, Sol, the home of humanity. They believed that if Earth burned, the fire would end the nightmare. But far beyond their sensors, in the shadow of a dead moon, the Aegis Dawn and her sister ships were already waiting. Silent, invisible, patient. Captain Ward watched from the bridge. Hands clasped behind his back, he didn't need to speak. The crew already knew. The Starborn had come for revenge. And humanity had come for closure. Riley stood by her console, eyes fixed on the readings. Sir, she said quietly, their numbers are immense, over 3,000 ships. Maybe more. Ward nodded. Good, he said softly. That means we won't have to chase them later. The human fleet began to awaken. Dozens of black hulls shimmered as power cores ignited. Engines purred like beasts stirring from slumber. And when the Aegis Dawn moved forward, the stars themselves seemed to fade behind her. Ward's voice filled the comms, transmitted to every Terran vessel. This is Captain Ward of the Aegis Dawn, he said, calm and clear. The Starborn are coming to finish what they started. Let them come. Let them see what the silence has become. The Starborn fleet arrived in perfect formation, their ships glowing with furious light. Missiles, plasma, and energy cannons filled the void in a single overwhelming wave. But before the attack could land, the darkness split open from within the shadows. The human fleet emerged, not hundreds but thousands of ships, each one cloaked in the same black armor as the Aegis Dawn, each one carrying the same impossible power. The first volley came without warning. A blinding surge of railgun fire erupted from the void. Cutting through the Starborn lines, ships exploded in silence, their hulls melting into nothingness. The Starborn screamed orders, panicked, desperate. Return fire. All ships return fire. But their attacks met only darkness. Every beam of energy curved away, swallowed by gravitational distortions. Their own weapons turned against them, pulled into black vortices of folded light. On the Aegis Dawn, Riley gasped as her console flickered. Sir! The enemy weapons are collapsing into their own power cores. Ward didn't flinch. They wanted a war, he said. Let them drown in it, he raised his hand. All ships. Release the Dawn Protocol across the human fleet. Thousands of ships opened their reactors at once. The void filled with radiant blue light, not explosions, but controlled fury. Energy arced between ships, linking them in a vast web of shimmering power. And when the field stabilized, the Starborn fleet found themselves trapped inside it. Every signal jammed, every engine locked. Every escape path gone, Admiral Serac roared in rage, his face twisted in disbelief. What have they done? He shouted. His officers stared at the growing light around them. It's folding space, one whispered. They're turning the battlefield into a singularity. Serac's eyes widened in horror as realization struck. They're not fighting us, and they're erasing us. From within the light, Ward gave his final command. Engage, he said. The field pulsed once, then imploded. In a single instant. Thousands of ships vanished, no debris, no explosions, only silence. The stars dimmed, then returned. And where once floated the might of the Starborn, now there was only the empty night. The crew of the Aegis Dawn stood in awe. Riley whispered, It's over. Ward didn't answer. His gaze still fixed on the viewport. He could feel it, the quiet after vengeance, the hollow after victory. They'll call it over, he said softly. But it never really ends. He turned to his crew. Transmit one last signal, Weiss, to the council. The comms officer hesitated, then nodded and sent the broadcast. Ward's voice carried once again through the galaxy. The Starborn have fallen. Let this be the last war born from pride. Humanity asks for no surrender, only memory. Remember what arrogance cost you, and remember what silence means. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, the surviving empires watched in terrified awe. The humans did not occupy worlds, did not enslave, did not conquer. They simply turned away, leaving nothing but wreckage and warning. As the Aegis Dawn drifted quietly through the aftermath, Riley looked at Ward, her voice small. What happens now, sir? Ward looked into the endless dark. Now, he said, The galaxy learns to live with its ghosts. Outside, the wreckage of the Starborn fleet glimmered faintly like fallen stars, and humanity, for the first time in history, ruled not through power, but through silence. The silence of the stars. The war was over. But the silence that followed was heavier than the battles that came before. No songs of victory echoed through Earth. No celebrations lit the night skies. There were no heroes waiting for applause, only weary souls staring at the stars they had conquered. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath, afraid to make a sound in the wake of what humanity had done. The Aegis Dawn floated at the edge of the Sol system, orbiting in the shadow of Saturn's rings. Her black hull reflected faint streaks of starlight. Scarred yet unbroken, inside the corridors were quiet, the hum of the engines softer now, almost peaceful. Captain Ward stood alone on the bridge, staring out at the endless horizon. He had seen galaxies burn, empires fall, and silence return. But peace. Peace still felt distant. Riley entered quietly, her steps hesitant, her voice soft. "Sir, the Council has sent a message." Ward didn't turn. "What do they want now?" She hesitated, then said, They've surrendered, sir. Every major empire. Even the Starborn homeworld." Ward was silent for a long moment, the glow of distant suns reflecting in his eyes. Finally, he said, "Then they've learned." Across the void, messages flooded Earth's network. Offers of truce, reparations, alliances. But humanity did not respond immediately. For the first time, the galaxy feared not their weapons but their silence. Governments trembled at unanswered transmissions, because silence had become humanity's loudest statement. On the surface of Earth, cities once rebuilt after the first wars now gleamed with quiet pride. Children grew up hearing stories not of defeat, but of survival. Statues of fallen colonists stood beside memorials for the unknown engineers who built the Aegis Dawn, and above them, human fleets patrolled the sky, not as conquerors but as watchers. Guardians of a peace earned through fire and loss, but far beyond the human borders, something else stirred. In the ruins of a forgotten nebula, deep within a dying system, a transmission flickered to life. Faint, encrypted, ancient. The signal repeated endlessly. "We remember the silence, and we will answer." Unknown to most, fragments of Starborn technology had survived. Fragments that carried memories of rage and vengeance, and among the wreckage, machines began to awaken, rebuilding what was lost. Back on the Aegis Dawn, Riley studied a faint anomaly appearing at the edge of the radar grid. "Sir," she said nervously, "something's moving out there, but it's not on any known channel." Ward approached, his expression unreadable. "Playback," he ordered. The sound filled the bridge. Static, faint clicks, then a whisper of a voice. Old, metallic, but hauntingly familiar. "You silenced the stars once, human. Let's see how long they stay quiet." Riley turned pale. "Sir, that voice, it's Starborn origin, but the signature is different, stronger." Ward's eyes narrowed. "Then the silence didn't end them," he said. "It only made them listen harder." He turned toward the viewport, the faint shimmer of stars beyond the glass. "They'll come again," Riley said softly. Ward nodded, his tone quiet but unyielding. "Yes," he replied, "and we'll be here when they do." He rested his hand on the console. "Prepare the ship. Wake the core. Humanity doesn't hide. Not anymore." The crew began to move, silent but certain. Systems came online one by one. Lights flickered, and the heartbeat of the ship grew stronger. The Aegis Dawn's engines ignited once more, a low, resonant thunder rolling across the black. Ward looked out one last time at the stars, no longer as enemies, but as challenges waiting to be met. "They mocked us once," he murmured, "and the galaxy learned to whisper our name." He raised his gaze toward the horizon. "Now they'll remember us forever." As the ship turned and vanished into the void, the stars shimmered faintly in her wake. For a moment it seemed as if the universe itself bowed in quiet respect, because among the endless galaxies there were countless species, but only one humanity, born from a small blue world, forged in silence, tempered in defiance. And when the last echo of war faded, only one truth remained. The stars would never laugh again, because the humans had taught them what silence truly meant.